The voice of truth tells me a different story.
We're in the top of the second hour of today's show, and I'll be interviewing Cynthia Davis, currently running for the Missouri Lieutenant Governor's position on the Constitutional Party ticket. Cynthia, I want to take a moment to, folks, let me give you a little bit of an overview of Cynthia Davis. She is former 8-year Missouri Republican state representative from O'Fallon, Missouri. She's a homeschool mom, mother of 7, 31-year wife of husband Bernie, and now candidate once again for the Missouri Lieutenant Governor. And Cynthia, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to come into the studio and talk with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Cynthia, you've been part of the Republican Party for a long time now. What made you decide to leave them and run on the Constitution Party ticket?
Well, my principles and values have never changed. I've always been the same person all along. I just woke up one day and realized that my party that I've devoted so much of my life and energy to is not any longer representing our values. And we're not getting conservatives elected. And we're watching the whole country and the state headed for more big government, more spending, and they're taking us where we don't want to go. So it was time to just realize it is what it is. You know, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. My goal is to bring all the Republicans with me. It's a matter of saying, look, folks, what we're doing is not serving us well. It's time for all the Democrats who aren't happy with their way their party's behaving either to have a choice on the ballot.
Well, I've always believed that, just like Bill Clinton said, it's the budget, stupid. It's the real truth of the matter is, nowadays, it's the Constitution, stupid. And the fact that we need to get back to or rather, Bill Clinton was saying it's the economy, stupid. Budget, same thing. But anyway, the economy's stupid. And right now, it's the Constitution, stupid. We need to get back to it. Just like when Bill Clinton was running, he was saying it's the economy. That's what everybody wanted to hear about, and change to the economy. Now we need to hear about and move towards, back to, I should say, the constitutional form of government that our country and our state was set up on. And obviously we're pro-Second Amendment. We are the gun show. But we're also pro-Constitution. And Cynthia, I have to agree with you. Both parties have apparently moved so far away from the Constitution that it is almost time for another party.
It's an option. You know, and frankly, Ronald Reagan was the one who said, I didn't leave the Democrat Party left me. Yeah. And it's time to call a spade a spade. Look at it. It is what it is. And the whole country is headed the wrong way. Now, just to give you a thought about the Constitution and how it's been grossly disregarded. First of all, this year, 85% of the bills were passed by both Republicans and Democrats equally. So most bills, if we're getting government bigger, it's both parties doing it. Now, I want to give you a little fun illustration because I know you used to be a police officer.
For a long time.
Yes, and as a state representative, I had an opportunity to go on a ride-along with the Missouri State Highway Patrol.
Oh, yeah, the troop. Yeah, good guys.
And it's a great way to explain the Constitution to people because we have to have laws. That is our lowest common denominator, is the U.S. Constitution. That's what we already agreed to. That's what we abide with. But we have so really let it down and gotten away from the principles that matter, to where only 41% of the bills that passed out of the Missouri House this year were actually constitutional. And you know,
hold on. Give me that percentage again.
41% of the bills that passed out of the House were constitutional. And now just let me ask you to imagine for a second, what would happen if we replaced all of our speed limit signs on the highways with signs that said, just use your best judgment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can imagine how that would be.
And when I was on the ride along, I learned a few other things I'm just going to share with your listeners. If you're ever pulled over by a patrolman, there are 4 things you should never say. First of all, don't say, officer, I just didn't feel like I was going fast, because it doesn't matter how you feel. And likewise with the Constitution, it doesn't matter what you think or feel. It matters what it is. And don't tell the police officer it's okay because nobody got hurt. Because it's not about having an accident or getting hurt. It's about what we've already predetermined is our law. And don't tell them, I always drive the speed limit like 82% of the time. Isn't that good enough? Because we've got to have our rules. That's our civility. And the last thing don't say is, let me go back up the hill and try coming it down again at the right speed.
Yep, that makes sense based on my experience. Cynthia, a prime example of just what you're saying, and was really brought forth to me when Obamacare was first being pushed. And it is unconstitutional. I mean, there is anybody who says it's Obamacare is not unconstitutional is definitely living in some kind of dream world. The government can't tell you what you got to buy. That's not what our founding fathers set this country up for. But when the Democrats were pushing Obamacare, the Republicans, they didn't come back and say, hey, that's unconstitutional, you can't do it. They just said, we got a better plan. And that's what got me. They should have been standing up saying, look, it's unconstitutional. You can't do this. But instead it was, hey, we've got a better plan. So they were embracing the fact that it was unconstitutional for the Democrats, it's unconstitutional for us, but we still want to use it to in some way control, just like the Democrats do. We're just putting a different spin on it.
Right, and being unconstitutional, let's call it what it was. It was really against the law for the federal government to be telling anybody in the states what they can and cannot do unless it already is in the Constitution. So I was actually the one who filed the Healthcare Freedom Act first. And I said, we're not going to force our citizens to buy anything they don't have to buy. I have to say, during the first hour of your show, I was listening to the discussion and trying to contain myself because there's a part of me, and I believe a part of everybody, that feels like it's patently offensive that we should have to now go to attorneys and get documents drafted just to protect our Second Amendment rights. In fact, I got a concealed weapon permit, and I will tell you, when I took the class, I took it with Tim Oliver because he's in Columbia, and he told us in the class, now, you probably should get a separate document for your concealed weapon instead of just putting it on your driver's license, because you don't want everybody in Walmart and everywhere else to know you've got a concealed weapon permit. And I sat there and listened to it and said, wait a minute, I don't want them to think I don't have a permit. So now when I go everywhere, I will use my concealed weapon permit because we need to hang on to our right. We cannot let them intimidate us, put us in the back corner and embarrass us. I even use my concealed weapon permit at the airport.
Wow. That's gutsy. That's gutsy.
I figure they're going to pat me down anyway.
Cynthia, you're so right in the fact that we should not have to set forth up gun trusts and so on. We shouldn't have to jump through hoops, but that's where we've gotten to this point in our country, and that just is another example of what we mentioned earlier in the fact that we have gotten so far away from the Constitution. The Second Amendment, you gave a great example of that in the fact that we have to have a permit, we have to go and get gun trusts. That's the way it is, so Doug was right. If that's the way it is, that's what we got to do. Okay, that makes sense, and I encourage people to do that. But I do believe also that we have turned that corner, and we are heading back to the Second Amendment to a point where you have the right to own and bear arms, and you don't need any paperwork at all, because the founding fathers said your right to own and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I believe they were educated men, and they chose their words carefully. The word infringed basically means don't mess with in any way.
Yes, and I shouldn't have had to get a concealed weapon permit.
I agree.
I did it because I wanted the experience of what it felt like to go through it. I wanted, they treated me like a hardened criminal when they took my fingerprints, and I had to talk to the woman behind the inch-thick glass to make sure I wouldn't hurt anybody, which is really very offensive to the good law-abiding citizens. And here I am in the sheriff's office, and they're telling me, take a number and wait. And by the way, if you don't get this picked up and come back in another 10 days, then you forfeit everything. I mean, they shouldn't be treating us this way.
The Constitution, we have to get back again to the Constitution. And again, we're going to talk about it more when we come on the other side of the break, but our government has gotten so far away from a government of the people, by the people, for the people, that now it is a government for the government, by the government, by the government.
Right. And if the founding fathers could have heard our debates we're having today, they would be appalled. I was sitting in the rear of the chamber one day when we were debating bills, and I was having a discussion with some of the other legislators about the raw milk idea. Why are we made to feel like criminals if we want to buy raw milk? And suddenly it occurred to me, if the men who sat here when this Capitol was originally built could have heard us debating the legality of purchasing raw milk, they would be appalled. They would say, "Excuse me, what's raw milk?"
Yeah, our founding fathers never set this country up to end up the way we have, and we do have to start winning this country back towards the Constitution, and that's where your candidacy and the Constitutional Party comes into play. And I want to take Cynthia, when we come back on the other side of the break, I do want to talk to you more and more about not just the Constitutional Party, but also state sovereignty and breaking more and more away from the stranglehold that the federal government's got on us, and they're pulling away, how they've pulled us away so far from the Constitution, what our founding fathers said. Take a moment to explain to our listeners what the Constitution Party really is and where they came from.
Well, first of all, the best way to describe this process is through this fable of the emperor's new clothes. Because there was an emperor once who wanted to wear something really cool, and the tailor said, "Oh, if you're very smart, you can see it, but if you're not very smart, you can't see the clothes." And so everybody was afraid to admit that they weren't very smart. And what did it get them? So the emperor was parading through town, and it took a little boy to say the emperor is naked. And then everybody else admitted, yes, he is. And I'm telling you that the Republican Party is naked. They have been growing government bigger. And I think the hardest part to comprehend is why the talk doesn't match with the walk. So you've got now a situation where they're saying they're all going to say come election time they're conservative. But let me tell you what they've done during this time. They've grown the budget bigger. When I got elected, it was $18 billion. When I left, it was $23 billion. When they're encroaching on our liberty every year to the point where this last year they put a ban on who can be friends on Facebook. They have we're playing Mother May I all the time, and we're really seeing more problems. They're doing this China hub. They're redistributing the wealth. Let me say something about this special session they just had with the China hub and these tax credits for science experiments. Do you know how ridiculous that is to claim it's for creating jobs? I mean, if they really wanted to create jobs, why don't they do something that will actually make jobs, not redistribute the wealth? Like, how about an income tax holiday? Can you imagine what would happen in Missouri if we said for 1 month you don't have to pay income tax anymore on the money? You get to keep all that you actually earn. That would create jobs. That would make people want to work again.